Welcome back to Forged. I'm your host, Tracey Martin, and I am one day before Refined, which you guys know this event is so close to my heart, and I just share so much in that room. So we'll be wrapping up that and have that on the next podcast. But until then, I have a dear friend of mine who flew in from Florida last night, first time meeting in person. His name is Chad Rickabaugh. I get to work with him on some things. I am in love with his wife for what she does with her hair care, Monet. But anyway, I want to jump into this conversation because as a coach, I come across so many different generations, so many different lifestyles. And there's conversations and perspectives that need to be shared in order for us to actually learn and level up in our life. So I'm going to let Chad introduce himself, give him a little background, and then we're going to dive into this conversation. So, Chad, take it away.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Tracey. It's a pleasure to finally meet you in person. And I want to thank you for all the wisdom and guidance you've given to me and my amazing wife. We'd be lost without you.
No, it's a privilege for me, trust me.
No, and I'm honored to be here today. My name is Chad Rickabaugh. I'm from the Space Coast of Florida, and I founded a company called RevTex, which we'll talk about soon, but I'm a father of two amazing children and the husband of a beautiful wife for 16 years now. And
You hit the lottery.
God's been very, very kind and generous to me, and I'm so thankful for all the blessings.
So tell me a little bit take me back, because I think part of what makes you who you are today, I always like to talk about the adversity.
There's been a lot of that.
Right, and you know what? In our world today, we want to numb out what we are going through, and rather than realizing that we actually have to grow through that. That's the journey that God places us on, that we should meet it head on, right? And so take me back a little bit, to a younger Chad, who were you then? And you probably didn't know who you were becoming yet, did you?
No. And God dealt me an interesting set of cards when he made me. I was born to my amazing mother, who was 19 at the age. She was very young. And there was some back and forth between a couple guys. And the man who I call my dad, who raised me, was not my biological father. And I'm so thankful for that man who I call my dad today. I ended up meeting my biological father when I was 19. And I kept an open mind. I prayed over it a lot, open mind, and I couldn't be more thankful for the man that he is.
Nice.
So I really hit the jackpot of having these amazing men in my life. But during that childhood growing up, I knew something was off, right? And that allowed me to be the man, whoever I wanted to be. I wasn't held to genetic restrictions. So it gave
Or
that.
you weren't living in anybody's shadow either.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. There was some times where I was angry at the situation, like, why can it not just be normal, one father, one mother? But when I look at it, like, my mom was 19.
Yeah.
Right? Like, she did the best she could at that time. And so I love her for all the decisions she's made. Now I've come to realize that, I am who I am because of these challenges.
Right.
And so that's given me a whole new perspective on how we look at problems. And there's a line in the Marine Corps that says, embrace the suck. Right?
I like that.
Through adversity, we build character, and be thankful for the problems, because problems mean growth. And so it's how we take on those challenges that life throws at you. And I'm very fortunate. As I look back, it was difficult, but it made me who I am.
Right.
So
but I like what you said a minute ago when you said, embrace the suck, because it's so true, right? It's like, even as families, when you don't have a family, and this is probably a very controversial statement, but I really don't care. It's like when you have a family that bubble wraps you and you don't experience, and you're saved from everything, and you can't go through anything. And then all of a sudden you wake up and you're 25 and you're like, I have no idea how to navigate life. So it is actually a blessing when you have difficulties, right? Whenever, and I think that what you said, reframing that into, okay, this is an adversity. Who do I need to be on the other side of that?
That's right.
So who is Chad on the other side of that particular adversity with your family?
Well, real quick, that's my biggest fear with my kids, is that they don't have enough suck in their life, because we've given them such an amazing.
You bubble wrapped them.
Oh yeah, a little bit. We got to toughen them up a little bit.
Yes. Send them out here.
But who I am on that adversity. So I will say, growing up, went to high school, met a Marine Corps recruiter, and he told me, Chad, you just went to 12 years of school. Why would you want to go to 4 more? and we'll also give you guns. We'll teach you how to shoot, and you can travel the world. And this was in 2003. It was a great time to serve your country. And, I learned that I quickly fell into a culture of alcoholism, right? So that was, the world's greatest fraternity was founded in a tavern. So that, like,
I didn't know that.
oh yeah, 1775, November 10th, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Tun Tavern is where the Marine Corps was founded. So that is very culturally ingrained in us. And so being very vulnerable at that age, having just met my biological father, not knowing who I am, really kind of coming into it at 18, 19, it was very difficult, and I fell into drinking pretty heavily.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
Was fitness at all?
Fitness is always,
sports?
yes.
Okay.
My mom got me a weight bench when I was 12.
Okay.
And I fell in love. This was during the Ronnie Coleman,
Oh my God.
Jay Cutler days, like Lee
Dorian
Priest, Dorian
Yates.
Yates, Phil Heath, So all of my boys, we always lifted. So like physical fitness, I've always been a top priority. Gym rat, self-disclosed gym rat. So that's where Marine Corps excelled really well, because all you had to do is really shoot and be physically fit, and you're good to go.
Yeah. Well, not anymore though. What is it? 77% of young men today are not even close to being able to be drafted.
Yeah, it's pretty
how bad it
rough.
is.
I talked to a Marine Corps recruiter at a grocery store recently, and he said numbers are down. That was prior administration. I think numbers are back up from what I've been told. So love to hear that. But yeah, that alcoholism was kind of that was a chink in the armor. Like, I was pretty vulnerable to that.
Had you had any experience with it before?
Yeah, I had a stepdad that drank heavily.
Okay.
Like daily beers, nonstop. So like, it was kind of already there. And I love the line that you say that every child deserves to grow up in a sober home.
Yes.
And if that doesn't resonate with anybody who's on the fence about sobriety, that should, if you're a father or even a mother, every child deserves that.
Yes.
And I just couldn't encourage you enough. And so I didn't have that rock bottom moment that got me sober. I think, when people
everybody loves the story. But
oh, yeah. They're like, when they found out I stopped drinking, they assumed that I got a DUI and killed a family of 5, right? And so I knew enough to where it's like, okay, I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop before it gets to that.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay. And then people who are struggling with man, I need to sober up. I think that culturally we're almost waiting for that rock bottom where you end up in jail or in rehab. And I'm here to tell you, you want to nip it before it even gets close to that.
Yeah, I had a young man, a guy in here that was working with one of my clients, and he said there's 3 things that this is going to get you. You're going to continue to drink and ruin your life. You're going to be in jail. You're going to be dead.
That's right.
He goes, those are your 3 options. And when you hear that, you start to realize that you're playing with fire at some point in time. And like your generation is different. Like my younger ones that I coach now, they have Uber, they have Lyft. There is no reason.
You're a fool if you get a DUI these days.
There is no reason.
There's self-driving cars.
You saw the Waymos on the way in.
We saw the Waymos. Blows my mind.
I
know.
Yeah. I'll never be getting in one. So no. But it's interesting though. Whenever you look at between having the ability, you don't have to get into a vehicle. Number 1, number 2. What I see too is that there's all this permission. So parents say, well, they're going to drink. I might as well be the one to give it to them.
Correct.
Right?
You are encouraging your kids to drink and saying it's okay.
How will you handle your son?
There's a line that I love. It's good intentions, but bad judgment.
Yes.
Right? Like, you think you're doing the right thing by having them in a controlled environment, but you're just fueling this very powerful substance. And I want to encourage anybody to listen to the Alex Huberman Lab podcast.
Okay.
Great neuroscientist.
We'll put a link on there.
Yeah, great neuroscientist from Stanford. Love the dude. He did a podcast on alcohol. So if you look up Alex Huberman and then look for his alcohol podcast, he breaks down what this poison does to our brain. And we've heard of the concept wet brain. I've seen this firsthand with 2 brothers, one who got sober 37 years ago and the other brother who stayed drinking heavily. The level of conversation, the one who's been drinking is stumbling to find his words.
Yes, yes.
The one who's been sober is sharp as a tack.
His
He's
brain is regenerated.
holding court,
Yeah.
making everybody laugh. It's an amazing thing. And I knew that if I continued on that path of crushing dad beers
Yeah.
and cold snacks every day,
Mm-hmm.
I was going to have a wet brain.
Yeah.
And it's weird because when I worked in corporate America, I could come to work hungover, and guess what? I get paid the same.
Yeah.
Now as a business owner, my brain is my weapon, and I have to keep that weapon sharp.
Well, you're optimum at this point.
Oh,
Yeah. It's a whole different game. It's a whole different game. How will you handle the conversation with your son?
yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I'll be honest with him. I'll say, hey, dad used to drink, and I can tell you what my life was like before, and I can tell you what my life is like after. And I pretty much give him the same line of like my walk in this world without Jesus and
Yes.
my walk with the Lord. And I'm here to tell you I've done both, and I ain't going back.
Yeah.
It's so much better on the
I
other
heard a
side.
girl the other day, she had this analogy, and I wish I would have brought one, but I didn't. So I don't know if you heard this or not or saw it. So she talked about like a glove.
Okay.
And she said, if you have a glove, it's worth nothing.
Hmm.
You can't do anything with it until you put your hand in it.
That's good.
And then you can hold it, you can pick up, it keeps you warm, whatever. She goes, we are the same way without Jesus. That resides in us. We're the vessel, and our life is purposeful with him. This glove is nothing but fabric without your hand.
That's so good.
And it was funny when I sat there and you think about it, because it is such a personal journey, and like you said, you didn't have a rock bottom. I mean, I've interviewed people who have had, horrible situations where they're like, because I always tell people, you only change for two reasons. Number one, you've educated yourself, you've gotten out ahead of it, like you said, and you're making better choices to lead an optimum life. Number two is you don't have an option not to.
That's right.
That you don't, there is no, it's kind of like halfway being pregnant. You're either in or you're not in.
That's exactly
And
right.
when I talk to people about different addictions, whether it's alcohol, whether it's my younger kids with pornography or social media, and I'm like, it's like if you said something to somebody, if you said, oh, well, I'm going to go sober, and then 2 or 3 weeks later, like, but I only had 2, well, then you're not sober. It's the same thing with guys with pornography. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to stop watching porn. Well, I only watched it twice this week. You're still in the game.
That's right.
And so I think that's the hardest part too. Like when you look at Cole, because how old is Cole?
My son he'll be 14 in July.
Okay, so he's at that age right now where all these distractions are starting to come
100%.
into his environment, right?
100%.
So how do you guys handle those in your home from a place of being a strong father and a strong husband to where he gets the message by you modeling it or by you speaking?
Oh, that's such a good question. So I'm reading through the Gospels, right? I think I want to encourage anybody, like this gets you from baby Christian to like maybe middle school Christian. Like everybody should read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I'm in the book of Luke right now, and Luke 9:23, Jesus tells the disciples to deny yourself and pick up your cross daily. So there's this reoccurring theme within the Gospels where we have to deny the flesh.
Yes.
And so in a world where we are so flesh driven, whether it's food, whether it's alcohol, whether it's drugs, whether it's porn, everything you want to please thyself.
Right.
But that's not where we get our strength, because your body doesn't go to heaven with you.
Right.
Like your soul does.
Well, and that's what's so cool about, just to piggyback off of that, is that, the enemy, because we are born behind enemy lines. And so when you look at the enemy, he's fine with degrading this incredible vessel because it's going to stay here.
Right.
Our soul goes to heaven.
That's so true.
So when you look at and you can just pick whatever you want to say with the immorality of anything that you're going to do. But when you pick that and you realize that that's the only way he can get to you, is by all the flesh, all the temptation, everything. Because if you protect your soul, which you wouldn't do these things if you were protecting your soul, because they literally deplete you.
Right.
They deplete everything about you, everything about your soul. And so it's like, I mean, when you look at and have conversations with people and you're asking them, why are they doing this? Well, it just feels good.
It feels good.
You know what? It feels good. I'm like, yeah, it does. But what are you doing and what are you taking away? And you are when you realize you are a child of God made in His image, you would make different decisions and choices.
Right.
So when did you? And what was it like in the Marines when you got enlisted and you were there?
Yeah, so it sucks. I will say,
you embrace the suck.
Oh, you embrace the suck, and I think through those trials and tribulations, we become better than yesterday.
Yeah.
And I love the mindset of Marine Corps discipline or Marine Corps leadership trait is to know yourself and seek self-improvement.
Okay.
And so that really resonated heavily with me. And one thing that my recruiter said to me that really got me to sign up is he showed me a percentage of the Fortune 500 companies that were led by former Marines.
Oh, okay.
So
Interesting.
I was like, okay, I can go to college, go to UCF, go to UF, just like all my peers were doing, or I could go into the Marine Corps, serve my
Right.
country, get a significant work drive ethic, honor, courage, commitment, all of those things, and then come out, go to college, start my business.
Right.
So
Well, you immerse yourself in different skills.
correct. And we got to travel the world. I spent 2 years in Okinawa, Japan, which was amazing. We got to serve all over the Asian Pacific, and then did 2 years at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, where I met my amazing bride.
Yes.
And I'm so thankful for that. And fun thing about me and Amy is when I was in the Marines, we talked on the phone for 6 months before we even met. This was flip phone era. Like,
Yeah.
we were not FaceTiming. I had pictures of her, but I really didn't know what she looked
Yep.
like. So it was a pretty magical moment where God put us together to where we could learn about each other, really make sure that we liked each other
Right.
before the flesh came
Yep.
in.
Yep.
So that was super, super amazing. I'm so thankful for that.
Well, and the other thing too, when you look at couples being equally yoked, right? The conversation. So where were you guys on your faith walk when you met and you decided to kind of move to the next level?
So my wife is a preacher's daughter.
Okay.
So she knows the Lord, grew up in the church. My father-in-law is an anointed pastor, man of the Lord. I did not. I came from a home that was far. I wouldn't even say Creasters. Like, we didn't even go to church.
Christian
At all.
Easters, no?
All right, no. Like, we didn't even go to church. So I had my doubts. Admittedly, I was probably an agnostic. I wouldn't say I was an atheist. I knew there was something,
Right.
but I had a lot of questions. And my wife led me to the Lord. And so I was super thankful for her doing that. What came down to my finding the Lord was looking around at this beautiful earth and going, there's no way this is all from some big bang.
Right.
I'm a big deer hunter. I spend a lot of time in the woods. And anybody who's been in the woods and that sunlight comes up and those birds start coming alive and you see
Creation.
the majesty of this beautiful earth, you cannot tell me that this all evolved,
Right.
evolution theory, which is a theory,
Yes.
from some big bang.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
has to be a divine creator. And so that curiosity came to me. And so I was saved, but I wouldn't say I was walking with the Lord until probably about 5 to 6 years ago. And then I went in both feet, all in.
What changed when you became a father?
Everything, only everything. Now I've got this little human being that I'm responsible for. He looks like me. He's got my last name. Like, he is going to be my biggest investment to
Yes,
this world
yes.
and to this culture.
And the only thing you can take to heaven.
The only thing, it's extremely humbling,
Yeah.
being a father, because, when he's naughty, you got to remember, like, it's my genetics and my upbringing, and then, like, now.
Well, naughty you can say with a smirk.
Right.
That they're kind of like, I said that to my grandson the other day. I said something, McKenna goes, Theo's being naughty. I said, are you being naughty? He goes, I am, T.
Oh.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay,
I live in a
naughty's still
fallen
smart.
world. Please forgive me.
Forgive me. I know.
Yeah, it's. I had a revelation recently with my son. I have my son and my beautiful daughter. My son, it's a tough age, growing up, that preteen, pubescent years, and everything that he has is because of me.
Right.
Right, and then he'll deny me. He'll sin against me. He won't do what I've asked him to do, and the frustration that I have with that, and then something clicked, and I go, this is how God feels.
Yep.
When he created you. He gave you all your blessings. He gave you the air in your lungs, and yet here you are sinning against him.
Denying him. Yeah.
The one thing that God has that I'm working on is grace.
Yeah. Unconditional.
Right? So it's
Yeah.
like, okay, I need to show my son grace just as Christ did
Yep.
to us and be patient.
It's a
be
hard thing to remember,
understanding.
though, to parent our kids the way that God parents us.
Hmm.
It's a really hard thing to remember
Very.
because it's and I've been through that too, and I've been through so much with my daughters and now my little grandsons, and it's just like when you sit there and you realize, they are your legacy. And then you look at, too, what you went through, and we're supposed to improve upon our generation.
That's right.
Every generation should look back, and I think there are generations in the past that have not had the ability, or they haven't had the skill set or the communication to be able to do that. And we're at a unique time to where people are talking more about generational trauma, generational bondage.
Right.
How do I look back at my kids? And every single dang time that I've had an issue with my kids, it's my fault.
Oh, yes.
I mean, every time I can look at my daughters and I can think about when I was resisting, a growth pattern, or I was resisting, like them actually leaving or making a change. And then my mind would create this, scenario that wasn't even true. And I was teasing her. I told my youngest, I said, look, here's the thing. If I text you and you don't text me back in 20 minutes, I go, my mind is she's on the side of the road, she's gone, she's flipped over.
Call the hospital.
Exactly. I go, your mind is like, I'm having fun with my friends. And I'm
Right.
like, okay, so we got to have an agreement. And so even if you ask them, I'll say, what do I need from you? She goes, peace of mind and information. I go, that's all I need.
That's
I go,
right.
but then I have to shut it down. I can't do the judgment. Not everything is an opportunity to push you past your limits. So have you found as a parent that, and I get in trouble when I say this to some people, but they are my greatest teachers.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well said. Well said.
They are my greatest teachers.
No, I'm better because of my children.
Yeah.
Because they're teaching me grace. They're teaching me patience. And I love the line, like, everybody should have a mentor and a protege. Mm-hmm. Kids are the ultimate protege.
Yes.
You know, and it is refreshing to know when I talk to my friends that have kids the same age that they're going through the same exact
Oh, yeah.
thing.
Oh, yeah.
So now I can relieve myself of the pressure that, again, it's my genetics and my raising them,
Yep.
and go, oh, this is just a chapter in life. And one piece of advice I love to share with people is when something happens to you with your kids or even with your wife, ask yourself, is this going to matter in 5 years?
Right. Great. A great time.
If it doesn't matter in 5 years, don't let it matter for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And so that's been huge. I've also been, fascinated recently with stoicism. Mm-hmm. The only thing that I can control are my thoughts and my actions.
Right.
And so, 10%, life is 10% of what happens to us and 90% of how we react to it.
Yeah.
And so stoicism, there's some good stuff where, we put a lot of faith in on ourselves.
So much that's based in principles.
As a
too.
Christian, I get my strength from my Lord and Savior.
Exactly.
So I think the stoicism is a great philosophy for any parent who struggles with patience or anybody who comes unhinged or has anger or temperamental. It's that pause, that reflection, and acknowledging that we're going to let them do that. How I react is on me.
Right.
So,
and it's responding instead of reacting at that
correct.
point. Yeah.
And I wish I could say I always had that mindset.
Trust me.
There are times where I came off, and boom, I'm treating my kids like a Marine Corps recruit, and I'm a drill instructor, and that hasn't done well for them or for me.
I've done that. So I do that with Tom because Tom's project manager.
Oh yeah.
And I always tease him. I go, you project manage everything, which is who he is. So he came home. This is so funny. He came home the other day, and so in our guest bathroom, I hadn't gotten towels yet.
Uh-oh.
Okay, and and I wasn't finished with the towels. Okay, but I have a husband who he is so He loves everything. He wants to be involved from such a good thing. His perspective, his everything. I love all that. And it was funny. So I put the towels up on the towel bars, and I didn't put the hand towel on the hand towel rack because I was going to do some different stuff.
Oh my goodness.
No, this was hilarious. So I went to bed, and then he got up earlier than me, got up and went out to work. And I walked in the spare bathroom, and I busted a gut laugh. And I'm like, he just can't help himself. He changed the towels and put them. And I texted him. I said, I see we project managed the towels today. Mm-hmm. And he laughed because I knew I was going to get in trouble.
Well, he had a Gantt sheet, and there was a predecessor and a successor to that. We have to finish on schedule and below budget.
Yes,
okay?
it was hilarious, and it made me realize that when you see a marriage, because one of the things I coach on a lot is younger people that want to be married and have a family. And then people who are in the already married, and then they're not sure like how to navigate these because people see the end goal. They're like, oh, well, obviously everything worked out for them because look at da da da, right? And so I'm like, you have to understand, you have to meet someone that you're willing to build and grow with.
That's right.
And it's not perfection, it's progress. But there's also, when you said you give grace to your son, it's giving grace to each other
100%.
to grow. So were you and Amy, when you guys like decided to have kids, were you guys on the same page, or do you have different perspectives?
Yes, we were on the same
Good.
page. Like, we knew we wanted kids, and like that was always a life goal of mine, would be to get married and then have kids.
Yeah.
I didn't have that way. My birth story wasn't that
Yes,
way. I
yes.
was the accident.
Yes.
And so we accomplished that. Amy and I have been married for 16 years now, and I make the joke it's been the best 14 years of my life because it hasn't always been a bed of roses. Like, it's been challenging, but anything in life worth having is worth fighting for.
Right.
That year 7, it's a thing. Young kids, competing demands, parenting child, like, it's real.
Yeah.
But marrying her was the greatest decision I ever made. And it's the most important decision anybody will ever make, is who you're going to marry.
Who you're going to marry. You're going to battle with them.
And take a covenant before the Lord that I will be with this woman for the rest of my life through sickness and health. And I will say, now our marriage has extremely blossomed with my walk in the Lord. And as a father, as a husband, it's my job to lead the house as a spiritual leader in the home. And for the first part of our marriage, it wasn't that way. Like, she was the spiritual leader.
Yeah.
So, again, showing grace to her, asking myself, is this going to matter in 5 years?
Right.
It's not. Like, this is dumb. Let it go.
Okay, so let's fast forward to your little McKinley's dating.
Yes.
And there's a guy. I know you don't want to think about it.
No, she's got a boyfriend.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. She's 12 and got a boyfriend. Great kid. Comes from a great family. Like, non-threatening.
Right. Okay, so what happens when it starts to be serious? Will you sit down and have a conversation with him?
Oh, yes. Okay. Yes. I have not had that conversation with him. He's pretty low threat.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, no, it's little, not even puppy love. Like, it's kind of,
infatuation.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so, yes, 100%. And I think I hate the cliche of the dad cleaning the shotgun.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think that's so terrible, because my plan is to raise a woman who wouldn't date that guy that would even be worthy of a shotgun.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then Cody Johnson has a song, I'll get goosebumps just thinking about, God bless the boy. So praying for your daughter's future husband.
Yes.
And I think what an amazing flip of societal norms. Like, the dad's supposed to be protective, have all his biker buddies in the garage.
Right.
Intimidation. Like, my goal is so that my daughter knows what to look for in a guy, because she sees that in me.
Yes.
And so.
And you are the first man.
The shotgun stays in the safe, and if anything, him and I go shooting.
Right.
We go hunting, because that's who she's chosen.
Right.
And I pray for who she marries.
Yeah, same. I always do that too.
That's a very important thing, and same for my son.
Do you think that there's and this is just a personal choice or a personal, I guess, perspective, but do you think that there is boundaries for parents when their kids get married? Like do you want your kids to look at, like, one of the things Tom and I've always said is that I will never have a key to my children's house, but they'll always have a key to my house.
That's good.
And I want them to look at Tom and I as wise counsel, not someone who's invading or invasive. So have you ever thought about that? Like when your kids now go off and then because it happens so fast, that, how will that look, for your family?
That's a really good question. Well, I've already started writing my Father of the Bride speech.
Nice.
All right, like, I'm going to crush that speech.
It's a tearjerker.
I've got the song picked out. I know what I'm going to like. I've been working on the speech. Hopefully, I have got a good amount of years for it. I also need to start saving up for it.
Yeah, right? Yeah, no kidding.
But, yeah, I think for me with that marriage is having no judgment, right? Like, because if you start judging them and casting stones, well, guess what? They're not going to come to you with their problems.
Right.
So will I be influential? And, you can hit them with the feel, felt, found. I feel you what I found was,
Right, right.
and
No,
then,
that's a great one.
So, helping them along the way, but, just praying that he loves the Lord for my daughter and that my son marries a woman that also loves the Lord, because it's funny because we had this conversation in the truck with my kids. There's a couple that we know that is going through the big D, the divorce. And I said, look at what happens with them and what happened with the other people that you've seen get divorced. Do they go to church? Do they walk with the Lord?
Is there a foundation?
There's not.
Yeah.
Right? And then look at this couple, this couple, this couple. So I'm already starting to plant those little seeds in their mind that's like, you can do life without Christ in the center, but it's a challenge.
It's tough.
It's very tough.
It's really tough. And I think too, our kids today have so much like destruction around them, and the noise from social media, from school, from all these other influences, and you can't control that.
No.
To a certain degree. And then once they hit a certain age, you definitely can't control it.
No.
And then you want them to come back, What age were you whenever you kind of like decided, okay, this is the man I want to work to be?
I'd say I was young. I was always that personal development mindset, and I attribute that a lot to fitness.
Yeah.
Right. Because in the
100%.
fitness world, the goal is to be better than yesterday.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Like continually getting better.
Discipline is the foundation.
Correct. Motivation fades, discipline stays.
Yep.
So I think I've always had that strong personal development mindset to seek to be better than I was. And I want to instill that in my kids.
Right.
I'm trying to do that with my marriage. My marriage is going to be better than yesterday. Me as a father, me as a business owner, is going to be better than I was. And just knowing yourself and seeking self-improvement, identifying your weaknesses, and not being afraid of looking into that metaphorical mirror and going, I messed up. I'm falling short here. I need to tighten up. I need to be sharpened. Show yourself grace.
Yeah.
Don't be too hard on yourself.
Well, not like that.
There's a balance.
But I always say humility is a superpower.
Be humble, don't stumble.
Yeah, it's so true, right?
Yes.
It's like when you have that humility, and that's why I said a few minutes ago when I said my daughters were my greatest teachers. Because it's like it sucks when you're the parent and then you're looking at your daughters, and I'm like, how the hell did you get so damn smart? I'm like, this sucks right now. But you know what? I mean, I shared this a while ago. My whole family did an intervention on me.
Uh-oh.
So it was a few years.
Is this filmed?
Yes.
Okay.
No, the intervention isn't. So what it was I got so deep and so busy in here in the coaching studio with so many families. It was going through a rough time after COVID, all the craziness. And I was in here nonstop. I wasn't showing up for my family. I wasn't making dinner every night. I wasn't being there, and it was affecting Tom, but he just never said anything. He just kept moving. And I went to have a lunch with my daughter and my oldest one, and she goes, we need to talk. And I'm like, okay. So we started talking, and she just like went into it, and I'm like, I'm leaving. And so then,
I'm not going to rehab.
I know,
you did
exactly.
that.
And I'm sitting here going I'm like, are you kidding me? Because I didn't see what they saw. And this was Mother's Day weekend. They couldn't even give me Mother's Day. And so, no, it was hilarious.
No better time.
No, just drive it in there. And then Saturday, everybody came over and they started to, and it was so funny. There was a split moment to where you start to kind of go, like, well, I'm so sorry for doing whatever. And then I'm like, hold on a minute. First of all, they felt really safe enough to talk to me, which was huge.
That's great.
Like I'm like, wow, okay, this was huge to be able to talk about this. And then I had to self-reflect and say, are they right? Because I don't ever want that to be something. And then I had to regulate myself in here to where I had to pull back a little bit more, and I couldn't do what I wanted to do. I said, but let me just tell you guys something. I'm called to do this, and I will do this.
Right.
Now, how can I adjust to where I don't want you guys feeling this way? And my girls were older, and I'm thinking, you don't need me anymore. And they're like, Mom, we always need you. Yeah, and so that was like an epiphany, because I was working with so many other families and so many other young people, and I'm like, wait a minute. I raised my kids thinking they're fine, and I'm like, no, you will always need your mom. I need my mom. And so I think that it was interesting. We talked about it afterwards, and then of course reined it in. But the humble, like, you had to sit there and go, I don't like this.
Right.
This is really. But then the more that I looked at it, and I realized that they felt safe enough to talk to me. We're going to move through this and move past this. And then they also had a different perspective too, because after all the different things I've been able to do in life, they've watched me more, but they were in a different place, you know.
Right.
And then when McKenna had her babies, and then she looked back and things softened, you know. And so it's like that full circle moment, you know, when you get that. So when you have humility, do you feel like when you're with your family, because I have to say the one video that you guys posted was freaking hilarious.
Whoa.
Where
Which one?
It was the one where you thought Colt was being disrespectful to
Oh,
Amy.
I got a lot of hate on that one.
Did you really? That was too good.
Don't read the comments.
It was so good.
Yeah, it's called the, shut up mom prank.
Yeah, yeah.
Kind of everybody was doing it, and I just gotten in after working in the yard, and my wife asked my son to take out the trash, and his reaction wasn't anywhere near my level of expectation.
Right.
And I alpha
Which,
dadded.
by the way, he was playing.
I was not stoic in that moment.
He was playing.
Of course, yes. And he's like, Dad, it was a prank. It's a prank. It's a prank. It was hilarious. But I do want to go back to your intervention. Okay, your kids, if they're having an intervention for you because you're working too hard helping other people, they're going to be fine, okay? Versus, I'm sure there's kids out there who's like, their mom's on the streets.
Well, and that's what was so funny.
Okay.
One of my girlfriends, she goes, that's actually funny.
Yeah.
And I said, but you know what? Though?
First world problems.
Right. But I told them, I said, but in their world, in their perspective, it bothered them. You know what I mean?
Correct.
And so then I had to address it.
Their love language would be quality time.
100%.
That's me. Which
Yeah.
I argue with anybody that quality time is the top love language.
It's one thing you can't get any more of.
You can't get, and you guess what? You can't have the other ones.
No.
Without quality time.
Agree.
And then
Agree.
every guy's physical touch. I think
Right.
I've learned.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Everyone is. No. For sure.
What's your love language?
Well, it's funny. So Tom
Is
is
it
acts of
gifts?
service.
You
No,
gifts?
I'm not a gift person.
Always watch out for the gift.
No, I'm not a gift person.
Yeah, I knew it.
But Tom is acts of service.
Okay. That's
I mean,
good.
he's the guy that will go by and pick up our daughter's car and get the oil changed and drop it back off.
Stud.
And, I mean, he's the guy that before Boo hits the road to Tucson, he checks the tires, he gets the water, he gets
Servant. Enneagram number 2.
Totally to serve all that
that's
stuff,
me.
right? I think mine is quality time because I know time is so precious.
Yeah.
And so when people invested in you or when you need it, they're not going to be able to get that back.
No.
You have no receipt on that. And so you start to look at it as, and I want to give time to people.
That's right.
And that was the hardest thing with the intervention was like, well, I don't feel bad for doing what I'm doing. I love what I do. I love my people. I love being in service. Now, how can I do it better to where it doesn't affect my family so much?
It is balance.
Yeah, and it was funny because they still laugh about it, and then I asked Tom, I go, do you feel the same way? And he goes, yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, well, damn.
He went last, by the way.
Yeah, he did. Smart man.
He
Smart
went
man.
last.
No,
But,
he did.
Yeah, quality time. And I think this goes for anybody. Like, get off your phones. If you're at the
Yes.
dinner table, like actually when you really break down that word quality time, ask people questions, get past the how was your day at school.
Right.
And I love the art of the interview.
Yes.
My grandmother, she's an amazing woman, and she had a radio show, still does, down in Vero Beach, and she interviews people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've always been fascinated with the art of the interview.
Yes.
Like Tucker Carlson. He's a
Right.
gold medalist, Olympian at that
Yeah.
medal. And so I think asking those great questions that help build that quality time.
Yeah.
Break down those barriers, get to what you want to do. And I hate the question, what do you do for a living?
Oh yeah.
That's the worst.
Yeah.
I was like, what kind of dog you got?
Yeah, exactly. But
Exactly.
even like as parenting, I hear kids, they always say when we do coaching sessions in here, they're like, I want to be and I kind of prompted them when they were having trouble. And I told them, I said, well, you guys, do you feel like you're being interviewed or interrogated? And so most kids feel like they're being interrogated because you're extracting information.
Right.
And so I had one family that I moved in with in Dallas, and it was so funny. And so I went to the school pickup line
Yep.
because the daughter was like, every time I get in the car, all she does is da-da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, hold on a minute. And so I told the mom, I said, you know what? I said, we're going to see if we can do this better. So I told the girl, I said, when you get in the car, ask your mom how her day was, and then give her information. I had a great day at school. I had a good lunch. Thanks. I just want to kick back and get a snack.
That's good.
Your mom's got information. She's good. And you watch it play out. And I'm like, you can't interrogate your kids because that will push them back. And I did that for a while until I realized this is not working.
Right.
And then you start to do it. So let me ask you a question.
Yes.
So what do you see as far as like between the next 10 years? I know you're training. I know you're building your business, which I want to jump in on RevText, which by the way, I use RevText and they have been amazing with our text messages for Refined. So, when you do that, you guys both, you and Amy both are entrepreneurs.
Yes.
So, which gives freedom and time, right? So next 10 years, what does that look like for you? Because you just turned 40, right?
I just turned 40 in October.
Okay.
Which, man, that's humbling, huh? That happened quick.
Please, I'm 60 in a month and a half.
Yeah, you don't look day over 29. Yeah, 40 is still pretty humbling, but I'm right where God wants me to be.
Exactly.
And rejoicing in that, and
Consider the options.
Correct. Yes. Right. So I think the 40s are going to be a great decade. Because I've got a lot of experience, got a lot of wisdom. I feel like I can instill wisdom more confidently on people. Like,
Totally.
I'm 40.
No, seriously. It's just lived life. It's just lived life.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Top priority is the kids. And so I left corporate America because I was traveling all over the world. And so I missed a lot of those younger years.
Small moments, yeah.
Which, greater impact. Those are pretty heavily mother-needed years.
Yeah.
These
are dads.
teen years,
They're
dad needs to be here.
Yes.
Right? Dad needs to be here to shape and grow and be with them.
And discipline.
100%.
Yeah.
And so being here for my kids as they grow up, and I want them to see my business thrive. I want them to see, me work hard and me celebrate. I just got a new customer.
Yeah.
Oh, great, Dad. Oh, I lost a customer.
Yeah.
Oh, it's okay.
The ups
Dad.
and downs.
Oh, yeah. So they need to see those trials and tribulations. So I share with them everything that's going through the business.
Right.
So that maybe my exit strategy is one of them to take it over.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah. Leave a legacy.
I do like I've seen it a couple times where like the grandpa builds the business, takes it to this level. The son or daughter takes it to this level, and then the grandkid just destroys
Trashes
it because they didn't see the rags to riches.
Yeah.
I hope that doesn't happen.
Well, because they're why. I have a family that I work with, and they're the one that built it has the massive why.
Right.
Then the other one steps in and wants to continue on.
Correct.
And then there's no attachment to it, because when you're building a business, you have to have an emotional attachment to some degree.
That's right.
And people who say that, I've done so many different businesses that when people say that to me, I'm like, but you don't understand. It's like an artist. You leave a mark on that. You do. You leave a mark on it. And so, it's one that can't be replaced. There's one Chad, there's one way, there's that part of it.
That's
now,
right.
they can go in and give their own perspective and leave their own indelible mark on it.
That's right.
But I think that there's not a why. It's kind of like what you said a minute ago where, embrace the suck, and then your kids aren't getting as much suck because you're making their life easier.
That's right.
Right? And so then you have to look back and go, the reason why you are where you are is because you overcame this stuff. And we have to understand that when we make our kids' life too easy, it's such a disservice to them for their growth.
That's right.
But as a parent, it's always, like you said, what'd you say? Good intentions are...
Good intentions, bad judgment.
Yeah. And I see that with so many different parents where it's like, I don't want to save you. And I want to leave my kid's life better than I had. I'm like, but determine what that better than you had was.
That's right.
If it's materialistic, you're missing the point.
100%.
It's like what are the top 5 character traits that you would want your kids to like possess?
Know the Lord with all their heart. That love thy neighbor. Those are the 2 most important ones. Be family orientated. Have a strong work ethic. Like that. It doesn't take much for my kids' generation, like even your kids' generation.
Yep.
Like a little bit of drive, you'll crush it.
Yeah.
And then lastly is be a good conversationalist. I think those are going to be like the rarest of qualities moving forward. I'm saddened today to drive by like school bus stops, and what are the kids doing?
Oh yeah, they're
all on their phone. Like that's where I cut my teeth.
And drinking their frappuccinos.
Correct. That's where I learned to talk. And so
Yeah.
I think what we're doing right now is sadly going to be
I agree.
a rare quality.
There's no interpersonal skills.
No.
Yeah.
So I want them to be able to have great conversations, because I think if you're a good, effective communicator and you have that drive, like life is going to come at you. But on the business front, I see it a lot, especially in the SaaS tech world, software as a service tech world. People want to build these businesses and then sell them. And I think that does a disservice to the customer base because
Right.
they're all ran by these big, non-personal, no-heart private equity firms. And so I would love to see more founder-led businesses.
Yeah, I
And that's
agree.
really what I'm trying to do with this.
Yeah.
Like, I'll work this business until I die. Like,
Same.
hopefully my kids come
Same.
on. But, the idea of building a business and then selling it off for 10, 15 mil, it sounds great. And
Yeah.
but
Well, it's never going to be the same, and I think that's, I mean, being in fashion for so many years, it was so funny where a new fashion brand would come out, and I'm people have experienced this, and it was like the first, like their first generation was the best fabric, the best craftsmanship,
That's right.
everything like that, and then they decided to cut corners a little bit, listen to somebody else
yeah.
tell them about it, and then I have the first run of Lululemon.
You read my mind. So
Yeah.
Lululemon, we're seeing that.
Yes.
I'm fascinated with that brand. I
Yeah.
did a big study on them in grad school. And Canadian based.
Yep,
Right?
yep.
Like they started out great. And now I listen to all the
It's
girls.
horrible.
They're saying, the brand.
Yeah.
But there's the leader follower business model. I love
Yeah.
like the follower, like will come. Early
Yeah.
market advantage
Yeah.
can be a curse,
Yeah.
so they can see your weaknesses, they can price you out,
Yep.
and boom. So
And then they
there's-
can also do the relevant conversation in society too, where people are moving more towards natural fibers,
Correct.
more clean stuff like that. And Lululemon is too big of a bus to shift.
Correct.
You know,
It's a
and
giant ship.
It is. And it was funny because when we went to California, we bought their first generation, and I couldn't talk as much about it.
No.
It was the most incredible. and
Athleisure,
I
like
still
they put
have
it
it.
on the map.
Yeah, I still
like
have
this is
it.
a Lululemon shirt, big fan of.
Yeah.
But the quality, and it's difficult, guys. Even like in my small scale business, like even as I see it grow, it's difficult to maintain that same level of
Yeah.
quality control, like that customer intimacy at scale. And that's even further escalated when you bring in private equity and they throw,
Yeah.
all their people and their money at it, and then how do you maintain that?
Right. It was the
level
same thing as a
of quality?
coach, it's like, and that's why I have the events, the coaching, the podcast. It's only one of me. I'll only do so many one-on-ones and so many
Right.
groups. And I have people that say that, you're like, we need to do this, we need to scale. I'm like, you guys, I am a small business.
Right.
I love the one-on-ones. I love the events. I said, yes, I will continue to write books and curriculum and do those kinds of things. But I think we've lost the heart of actual small business, because even when like a lot of these clean brands come out, they get bought up by the big conglomerates.
100%.
And then they're no longer the reason why you did it. And then you look at the conversation around that, and like you said, you want your kids to take it over. They have your integrity.
Right.
So if that is something that would work, they do continue that. I wanted to take over my dad's company. My sister and I did. And he's incredible, multi-million-dollar painter in
Nice.
Missouri, had
Yep.
like on 300 or 400 painters. I worked for him for a few years, and he wouldn't let me do it because I was a girl. And I
What could have been?
yeah, my
You'd
dad
have been a better sales rep,
well,
better
it
looking
was
sales
it
rep.
was
that's
crazy.
For sure.
My sister and I both talked about it, and she moved away because she was so upset about it. And I just went the path of a trainer and went down that path. And I talked to my dad literally like 2 years ago, and I'm like, what the hell was that? And he's like, he goes, I listened to what my family came from, and girls just didn't run companies back then.
How
And I
far
thought
we've
it was,
come.
I know. And I told him, I said, but what happened? His partner's kids took it over and ran it in the ground.
That's right.
And I told him, I said, but I had your heart, and I still have his heart to this day.
Oh, he regrets it.
Oh, he does. Trust me, he
Poor
does.
guy.
We talk
Show
about
him
it.
grace, okay?
I have. It's a little
Have
limited.
you vocalized forgiveness?
It's a little limited.
I'm coaching her.
Yeah,
Let's see how
exactly. I
flip
need it. I mean, it's a little limited, but yeah, it's getting there. But yeah, it's so funny when you think about, like, you build this and you do. What is it in the Bible? You leave inheritance for your children's children.
That's right.
It's not just financial. I have a girlfriend of mine who's her and her husband are buying a business now, and they want to bring their kids in. Now, if their kids don't want it, totally different.
Right.
But then that way they're leaving and pouring into them, and it's something that you can leave that legacy.
Right.
I think that's a huge thing. So we're going to wrap this up. But what I want you to do is do me a favor.
Yes.
What would Chad Rickabaw's legacy look like?
Oh man, that's a killer question. So, I want to fulfill the Great Commission as much as possible, to go forth, make disciples, baptizing in the name of the
Yes.
Father, right? Like that, first and foremost, I want to be known as a man of the Lord. I think about my funeral quite often.
Same.
Like, it's pretty morbid. My wife, she like, wow, that was deep, like I've got a playlist, a Spotify playlist for my funeral songs.
I've got my words happening.
Really?
Yeah,
I
we're-
guess she's got
we're
her
doing-
agenda for...
We're doing a huge bonfire.
That's great. So the legacy is important, and there's a couple. There's one guy, Alex Hormozy. Take the good, leave the bad. But one of the bad things I think he says is like, you're gonna be dead like it's not going to matter.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, well, I'd like to think
I
I'm leaving
disagree.
a lasting impact. I am eternally focused. But,
Right.
you know, I want to leave, you know, this guy was funny. You know,
Yeah.
first and foremost, he's hilarious. Good, you know,
Well, we're supposed to leave
conversationalist.
people better than when we found them.
That's right.
You know, I mean, so even just that, you know, it's like I've always say to people, I will meet you where you are, but I won't leave you where I found you.
It's good.
You know, and I think that so as a legacy for that though, Chad, when you start to look back at that, like what will people say about you?
I want to be known as the biggest hype man. Like we always say in our family that people are like elevators. They either take you up or take you down.
So
Like,
true.
We're up elevators.
Yeah,
You know, like
yeah.
hands down. We don't talk bad about people. Like, you know, even when people are starting to bash somebody in front of me, I'll be like, well, she's got that one good quality.
Yeah, yeah.
Or he's
yeah.
at least
Let's
funny,
pull it
you
out.
know, or something
Yeah.
like. I don't go down that road. So I want to be known as the ultimate hype man to lift people up, and you know, people will always remember how you make them feel.
Totally.
You know, so if I can make people feel good, you know, always start off a conversation with, you know, a compliment. You know, so that is big in the legacy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Marine, you know, serve my country, love my country,
Right.
Patriot, you know, protector, you know, servant. I love to serve people.
I would call you a savage servant.
Savage servant.
Yeah.
That's good.
I would call you
like
that. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, so I guess that would that'd be my legacy there.
I love it. Well, thank you guys so much for your time and listening to this interview and conversation between Chad and I. I am going to put all the links in there for RevText and for his
Perfect.
Instagram as well. We're also going to tap him when we're finished here to give me his favorite Bible verse because I do want to put that in there. And as you know, Forged, it actually stands for when you go through a fire, you come out the other side better. And that's what this is all about. So thanks you guys for your time. Please leave a review on us. Give us a 5-star and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.